Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. It is day 7 in Iceland, and today did not go as expected because instead of being in Philadelphia at the end of today, I am in a hotel room in Selfoss, Iceland. I had about halfway packed last night. There are certain things you can't pack until you're about to leave, like the supplies needed to brush your teeth and electronics, things like that. 7:45-ish for breakfast, and I went out. There were people who were knitting and breakfast wasn't quite ready yet when I went out. So I went and got my tax forms and started filling them out while it was relatively calm. Iceland has something similar to what Ireland has, so I think it must be a European Union thing where if you spend a certain amount of money in Iceland, like over a certain amount of money, they can give you the long tax refund receipt and you can get 14% of your purchase back because you're not a European Union citizen and therefore you don't have to pay. For Ireland, I didn't figure it out in time. The whole process was confusing on the way back. But Iceland, I knew I had the time. And I think probably because I've come across it with Ireland before, but also with just the whole process, I think with Iceland, it was easier to do the tax form. So I just filled out all the receipts there. And then we had people gather for breakfast, and breakfast was pretty simple. One of the other ladies had some peanut butter she didn't want to go to waste, so I decided to use up her peanut butter this morning. So that way none of us had to pack it and none of us was going to have it taken away from the airport. It was like a 6-ounce squeezable packet, which means it would be considered a liquid in that state. Like around 9 o'clock-ish, I went to go pack the remaining of my stuff, so I miraculously made everything fit into the bags that I had. My suitcase is stuffed. It was difficult to fit everything in, but I miraculously managed to do it. One of the other ladies also left a book and she's like, I don't want this book, someone else can take it. And it was like a book about the Lopa Pesa sweater, like the history of the Lopa Pesa sweater, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll take that. I ended up having to find some room for that too. After that, when everything was packed, I took some extra time to do some more knitting because people were just doing more knitting in that environment. What else were we going to do while we wait? Yeah. The mood was a bit somber this morning, partially because it was our last day at Hestaland and we were going to be heading home today. But also last night we found out that one of the members of our group got COVID. During breakfast, there wasn't really much point in masking up because we'd been breathing all over each other this entire trip. It sounds crass when I say it that way, but we were definitely in close quarters with each other. Like any exposure that was going to happen had already happened. And the person who was sharing a room with her ended up switching rooms for the night, although the person who had COVID wears a CPAP machine, which I think helped cut down on the circulation of COVID within that particular room. Her roommate ended up testing negative last that we heard, but everyone was feeling sympathetic towards her. Like, it's a bummer that she got COVID on this trip. Getting COVID isn't fun. It's not a fun sensation, and know that someone else is going through that is not fun to know either. Especially since now that we know she had COVID, we definitely have to take more precautions, although there were precautions I was going to take anyway. Like masking up at the airport, that was going to happen regardless. But in a way, it's also good that happened towards the end of the trip instead of at the beginning of it. Yeah, she ended up coming back on the bus with us, and she was in the back of the bus, and she was masked up in the bus, and we were masked up in the bus as well. When we left, one of the owners came with his 2 youngest kids to help send us off, and the little girl was pushing a pram, which she was pushing it over gravel. That's a hard feat. It was rainy out. The little toddler had his hat and his mittens. It was pretty cute looking. Right before we left, the owner of the ranch ended up walking around the lobby real quick, and he found a suitcase that someone forgot. And then he also found a water bottle someone forgot. And when he found the suitcase, he's like, is this suitcase for me? With the water bottle, he's like, is this somebody's? And the funny thing is, the person who forgot the water bottle, she actually carries around a big water bottle because she knows she has to drink water on a schedule and is prone to forget to drinking water. So the fact that she forgot the water bottles, yeah, this is why she's carrying it around in the first place. I can definitely understand needing a system like that to make sure that I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. Then we took a bus ride back to Reykjavik to the bus terminal where They picked us up to bring us to Hestaland to begin with, and I got the ticket for the fly bus earlier in the day. But I got it at a later time because I didn't know if we'd make it by noon, but I ended up making it by noon. It turns out with the fly bus, as long as you've got a ticket, you can go on any bus, even if it's not the time that you've originally signed up for it. Because I was looking for a flexible time, and I was able to get flexible time one time, but I wasn't able to get it on the way back for whatever reason. It was 4 minutes to 12 and I was going to leave at 12, but fortunately it was right there. Me and several of the other ladies from the group were able to catch the fly bus. We took it to a nice view of the countryside again. I was sitting in front of two ladies from the group and they were talking about horses, so I got to hear some more horse stories. And then we arrived at the airport. It was pretty smooth going at first. I found the tax refund pretty simply, because if you're going to do the tax refund, you do it before you check in your bag, since they may have to look at the items that you're bringing back. It was a long line, but it ended up moving relatively quickly. I don't think I was in that line for more than a half hour, and the only reason why the line was moving as slow as it was because people weren't filling it out properly, which I did forget a signature, but I just was able to fill it out right then and there. But I also had to download the app for Iceland on my phone today, and I don't like the idea of having to download another app, but it's lucky that I did. Incredibly lucky that I downloaded that app. So after I did that, I went and checked in my bag. Checking in the bag was pretty simple. I was able to use the app to scan the QR code that allowed me to get the bag tag for my bag, and then what was surprising was there were no humans behind the bag check. It was a self-checking bag check. I'd never seen one of those before, but I set my bag down and I was like, hey, see you in Philadelphia, bag, which ended up not being the right thing to say to the bag, at least not this time around. After that, I found a bathroom because I needed to use the bathroom. It's better if I do that before the security check because we don't know how long that'll take. And security went really quickly. I didn't have to take off my shoes. I did have to take off my belt and empty my pockets though. I tried to put everything in the one bin, but someone said the iPad had to be in a separate bin. So I put the iPad in a separate bin and I had to take off my hat. I didn't realize I had to take off the hat then. I went through and the alarm didn't go off for me. It didn't go off for the first box that had my bag and my jackets and whatnot. But it did go off for the iPad. I was like, ooh, it's getting a secondary screening type of thing. What's going on here? And turns out it was just a random tag. It was perfectly fine. So I was able to put everything together and then I was in. I think it dumped me in the gate A section and I was like, okay, let's just eat lunch. It was like around 1:30ish, 1:40ish at this point, and it's like I got a couple hours. I can spend some time to just eat at this point. So I went into the first restaurant I saw. I found some chicken pesto and a drink that looked like it was Icelandic, like Fit Hit. I don't remember if I saw anything like that when I was in the States or not, but the lunch was not as good as all the meals as I was having at Hestaland. But then again, the meals I was having at Hestaland were being cooked right then and there, and the food at the airport is fast food. Fast food is not meant to be necessarily good. It's meant to stop people from being hungry. While I was in the restaurant, there was a little toddler nearby, and she was playing with the middle string, so every so often you could hear like these clacking strings. And I mean, if this was me in the past, I may have been thinking like, will the parent control their kid? Where's this kid's parent? Are they supposed to be playing with the decorations like that? But then I realized the parents are probably just letting their kids stim a little bit. Hey, the toddler's going to be a toddler. Yeah, just let them experience with the world, and she must be liking this particular sensation. The parents did come over eventually and deal with the little kid. From there, I ended up walking towards gate D, which is apparently where all the flights to the US are out of. I found the gate that my boarding pass said I was supposed to be at. The boarding gates for the flights inside the Keflavik airport were not helpful because they wouldn't be showing what gate you're supposed to be at until an hour before you had to board, which if you're completely in the wrong gate, that could be difficult to get to the other part, although it is a small airport and it's not as devastating to be in the wrong gate as it would be if you were in like JFK. I managed to find a seat in the area near the first gate, but then I looked at my boarding pass and the gate had changed. So I walked to the new gate. Instead of being gate 32, it was now gate 22B. I was like, okay. So I walked over to the new gate and there were a lot of people down there. and I didn't really want to get too close to anybody, but it's an airport, what are you going to do? Yeah, that part was a little bit crowded, but then I noticed there were people who were in a similar boat with I am. I ended up at a gate that was going to JFK. During that time, I could hear other people going by and looking at it and complaining about that they're not near the gate. And I have to admit, there were a couple of them I looked at as like, boy, they must be a pain to travel. During that time, the gate changed again. At some point between the first gate and the second gate, I went and got some chocolate and I refilled my water bottle and I used the bathroom. So I was able to revamp a little bit. I ended up going to the third gate, but I had also noticed that I no longer had a seat, which was odd. So I'm standing in the gate and then I can see that we somehow ended up in a line, and the flight employee ended up coming around and checking our tickets because there were a lot of seat changes for this flight. So I heard someone else mention another story, but I also heard the flight attendant tell the story, and it's plausible that they both contributed to what happened in the terminal today. Yesterday, there was a flight to JFK that got completely canceled because the plane broke down and they weren't able to fix the plane. So they ended up having to accommodate all the passengers from that plane by arranging them for flights for today on different planes. And I guess some of them ended up heading to Boston instead. And they probably would have gotten a layover from Boston to JFK. That's literally like a puddle jump. Because the flight that I was going to have from Boston to Philadelphia, that was less than 2 hours. But then something happened to the plane that we were supposed to take today to Boston from Reykjavik. And in the process of changing the plane, they went to a smaller plane. Suddenly they're overbooked by 25 seats. Seats they might have had if they had the plane they were intending to use, and also if they didn't have to take passengers from the flight that broke down. So they're rearranging seats, and she directs me to the priority gate area for that particular gate. And I go there and the guy's like, yeah, sorry, we're rearranging seats. So I go over, I sit, and there's like a bunch of people coming in after me, like changing seats. And I know there's one older gentleman who was probably ticked off because he was a priority seat person and he thought he was going to get a simple check-in, but people had to change their seats. I ended up just waiting there. It's like, okay, there's just a lot going on right now. They're doing the best that they can. This is a logistical game. Then over the announcements, I heard an announcement saying, if you're on the flight to Boston, refresh your app to see if your seat has changed. And if not, go talk to... And then I didn't hear the rest, but I assume it meant go talk to the guy I was in line with before. And I refreshed the app. I even turned off my phone completely and turned it back on. And it still didn't give me a seat. So I went up to the guy and it took a little while. There were other things they were trying to arrange, but when they finally got to me, the guy scanned my passport. He's like, sorry, you need to go to the service desk. Which I guess he might have tried to tell me before and I maybe didn't understand it, because an airport terminal is a very loud, noisy place and it's very easy to mishear things and very easy for my brain to misinterpret things. So I went to the service desk. Gracefully, there was a small line, but I could already see the line for the flight to Boston. There's not really a good seating area in the airport gate that I was at. There's a waiting area, but it wasn't separate from the hallway. For that gate, it wasn't separate from the hallway that other people were walking through. So it was very busy and chaotic. I could already see the line had gone all the way down to the waiting area for the other gate that I was at, like all the way down to the intersection where a new hallway cuts in. And then it curves around, and it curved around to the other part of the seating area. So I went to the service desk from there. There was a short line at the service desk, and I didn't have to wait very long. And mercifully, at the time, the gentleman who was working behind was able to get me a seat assigned when I said, yeah, I'm from the Boston flight that got overbooked. So I go back, I stand in line, and I see more flight employees. The flight employee that told me this ended up coming around and checking my ticket, and I was like, yeah, Okay, but then I see more flight employees going like, hey, we are looking for people who are willing to stay in Iceland overnight. We'll provide accommodation for you. We'll put you up at a hotel. We'll take care of your meals and we'll provide you with transportation to and from the airport. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, that actually does not sound too bad, because I'm looking at the mess that's going on in the terminal and my mind's going like, oh, hell no. Because the way that things were looking now looked like we were going to be delayed leaving because they had to deal with this logistical mess. And I had a pretty short layover in Boston, like 2 hours, and I wasn't even sure that was enough time to get through customs. But I knew if there was a delay in the plane going off, I wouldn't have had that time, and I would have messed up the connection in Boston. And while I did choose Boston as the layover city because I know I won't be truly stranded in Boston if I get left there. There are other ways for me to get home because I'm on the same continent and on the same time zone on the continent. I didn't want to push my luck. And it's like, you know what? I don't have anything to do tomorrow. There's no reason I absolutely had to be home by tonight. I could arrive tomorrow. So yeah, that's why I'm still in Iceland. I went through passport control. I tried to go through the US line, but it turns out the only one that was open was the one for the EU. So I just went through that, and it was a very kindly border guard this time. He stamped my passport again to let me back into the country. Then I went to the baggage claim, and I had to wait about an hour for the baggage claim. I could have just left my bag there, but I wanted my bag with me. Because thing is, now that I've taken off my face mask for the night, it is dirty, and I do not want to wear unsanitary face mask to the airport tomorrow, especially since I know that I got exposed to somebody with COVID and I have not yet had a chance to take a COVID test. So I do not know if I have COVID right now. And while there are parts of me that do feel a bit off, while it could be COVID, it is just as likely it could be related to the fact that it is the heavy day of my period, and related to the fact that because of insane rules regarding transportation of liquids on airplanes, because someone was an idiot and forced us to put these rules into place, it is very easy to get dehydrated at an airport, and it is possible I could be suffering symptoms from dehydration too. Even though I've tried my best to not be dehydrated, but it is what it is, yeah. And since it is the heavy day of my period, I didn't want to be left with one pair of pants just in case something happened, even though I'm wearing black pants today. So I have my bag, but it took a while. And then after that, we were there to meet at the meeting point, and apparently we held up the bus. But thankfully I was not alone. The majority of the people who took the offer to be laid off from the Boston flight also waited for their bags. They needed stuff in their bags. Some people went without, and they're gutsy. I commend them for it. I wanted my bag. So once I got my bag, I was like, all right, we are out of here. Even though it was a long wait for the bag, I did have a chance to recharge my phone. My phone was getting pretty low on battery. I was able to charge it like way back up. But I found my way to the meeting place, which thankfully was a huge orange sign. And then they put us on a bus, and I saw the voucher. I thought from the voucher that we were going to end up really close, but they actually put us on a bus, and they waited till all of us were on the bus, and then they drove us out to Selfloss. I didn't realize this where we were ending up, but suddenly I'm looking at the countryside. It's like, I recognize where we are. I can't believe that I recognize where we are. I've seen these sites before. We are right next door to the hotel that had the cafe that we were at the other day, that we actually stopped by on our way home from our road trip. I'm in the hotel that's next to that hotel. It's like Hotel Orc, I think. And it's like, wow, what are the odds? We all went to the lobby of the hotel, and it was like 8 o'clock-ish, and one of the employees there was like, hi, welcome. I'm going to have you write down your names for us on this list. We have rooms spread across the 4 floors. This is how you're going to get there. And then basically just find your room, drop off your bag, come down to supper. We have supper for you. And that's precisely what I did. I'm currently on the 4th floor. He did mention that there was a pool. The pool was heated and it was open till 10, and there was a water slide attached. There are 2 water slides attached to it. That kind of makes me regret the fact that I do not have any tampons with me, because I totally would have wanted to go in it. I went down to supper. I talked to someone who admired my sweater. Her group was doing a layover in Iceland on a flight from Brussels. It was just a quick buffet. There was some sort of chicken and vegetables, and there were sweet potatoes, and then there was a salad, and then there was water on the table. And there was really fancy butter on the table, but there was no bread available, because if there was bread available, I would have gotten some. And someone else mentioned that there's no bread available, so I eavesdropped into his conversation, only to find that there was going to be no bread, so that poor butter is going to get wasted. And then I found a piano in a room. I ended up opening it up and just pressing one key. I don't really know how to play the piano, but I gave into the impulse there. There's also some nice paintings in that room. This is a pretty nice hotel, and they put me up in a very nice room. I've got a balcony. I was considering like maybe filming out in the balcony, except it does smell like cigarette smoke out there for some reason. And also the seats are wet. It might not smell like cigarette smoke now, we'll have to see. But yeah, part of me is thinking, Becky, you got an extra night Iceland. You should be exploring the surrounding area. When's the next time you're going to be here? But the more reasonable part of me is like, Becky, you had an exhausting day today. You can relax. So yeah, breakfast is going to be from 7 to 10, and apparently they're going to call us in our room when it's time for the bus. And they're going to make sure that we're not left behind. So I'm thankful for that. So I think I'm just going to chill and take it easy. Maybe stare out the window some more. But yeah, I'm still in Iceland. And tomorrow we get to go to the airport again. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.